Hi everyone, it's Margaret Manning here with Retire Different. This is the community for people who want to ask great questions in order to have a fabulous retirement. And today we're going to talk about a topic that I know is on the minds of a lot of people in our community, that's reverse mortgages. And I've got two guests today that are going to help us answer some of the key questions. I'd like to introduce you to Pam Krueger. Pam is an investing and financial expert. She is a television personality and also an author, co-host of PBS Money Track. She's also the creator of WealthRamp, which is an online tool that connects fiduciary advisors with consumers like you. Hi, Pam.
Hi, Margaret.
It's always good to see you. Yeah, I know. It's great to see you.
Always.
And Pam has very kindly introduced me to Joshua Escalante Troesh. Now, Joshua is a tenured professor of business and a financial advisor. He is the owner of Purposeful Strategic Partners, which is an investment advisory firm. He's a fee-only fiduciary advisor, and he's also the founder of Purposeful Finance, which is a nonprofit financial advisory board for people. So welcome, Josh.
Good morning.
It's great to have you both here. Now, let's get on to this topic of this very emotional topic of reverse mortgages. Now, we've just recorded a video on the idea of reverse mortgages, what they are, and a little bit of quite a bit of conversation about actually the risks that are involved with them. But we've kind of netted this out, and I would like Pam to take the lead on this to actually guide us through some of the questions that you might ask, and very directly question and answer, and Joshua will pull you in to get your expert advice too. So Pam, do you want to start us off here with the kinds of questions people have?
Yeah, because the goal here is to help people to prevent their heads from exploding.
Yes, like mine.
Reverse mortgage. It just sounds like a trick question. Who's buried in Grant's tomb? What is a reverse mortgage? It just sounds like. So first of all, let's start off with what is a reverse mortgage.
Yes, good question.
It's a tool, or it's a product, it's an arrangement financially that is intended to solve the issue for people who have a lot of equity in their home, meaning they have a very small mortgage or no mortgage at all left. The house is paid off, and they're looking at their house and they're saying, ding, there's money in them walls. Maybe I can use that equity in my house to borrow back some of that money that I've been paying over time to create cash flow in retirement. So the very first thing is that little thought bubble goes over your head with a little harp riff, ring. It just sounds so good. So what we have to do right now is really chunk through the questions, the key questions that people have. Now we know what it is. Let's talk about how it works. So let's start with the first question. Josh, can you break down in easy notes, how does it work?
So I'm gonna give you two definitions. The first one is sort of the technical definition, and then we'll figure out what does that mean in real life. And don't worry, the technical definition is not going to be that technical, but the idea is you're going to borrow money. All of the interest and fees are going to accrue on the balance of the loan, and you're not going to make any payments until at some point in the future, and that point is defined within the contract by many different things. You have to pay it all back. And so the way I like to describe reverse mortgages is they are literally the most perfectly named product out there, because it is literally the reverse of a mortgage. When you get a normal mortgage, you don't own a home, you want to buy one. You get the money from the bank to buy the house, you pay them back with interest every single month, and at the end you own a home and you owe nothing. With a reverse mortgage, it is literally the reverse of all of that. You already own the home. You would like to get money on an ongoing basis from the bank rather than paying the bank. And at the end, you have to pay it all back and you don't own the home.
That is actually the best definition of reverse mortgage I've ever heard, Joshua. No, that's great. Very, very helpful. Really visually, when you pay attention, I was paying attention clearly to what you said. And so that's a great answer to the question of what it is and how it works. So what's the next question, Pam?
Okay, so without repeating what we've already done in a different video, which you can look up, very, very quickly, if you could just sort of give us who is it really for, who's it designed for ideally, who's a candidate, and who is not a candidate.
Okay. So a reverse mortgage is really designed for people who have looked at the broader financial picture, the broader financial plan. Where people get into trouble and who it's not designed for is for people who are trying to solve a problem without understanding everything else going on in their finances. And so what a lot of people do is they use a reverse mortgage to supplement their income in retirement so that they can continue leading the lifestyle they want. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, as long as you have a much more complex and much more in-depth view and plan for what happens after this reverse mortgage happens. It is not a panacea. And that's oftentimes the way that it's sold, is that you can get money, you can get income, and you'll just basically, your house will pay for everything. And it doesn't work that way. And so it's really for people who have taken the time to really put a plan together, and they understand what can happen and what is likely to happen and what the risks are. And all of that is planned for.
So I'm
this thing that you just do because, oh, this sounds great because I can get access to my money in my house.
Yeah. So I'm going to suggest, and I'm kind of stepping outside the box and doing this a little bit. And I'm going to say that in my own experience, from what I've seen, this kind of contract, this kind of financial arrangement, to use your house as a piggy bank kind of thing, is geared for ideally people who can afford, like they have more money than not. And the people I think who get trapped and with unexpected expenses and shocks are people who are trying to ends meet, and use it as a way to help them make ends meet. There are exceptions to that, but that's what I've found by and large.
And unfortunately, people with more money tend to have complex analysis of their finances over long periods of time.
Someone does it for them.
Right, yeah. And people that don't are the ones that don't have these things, and that's exactly why they get trapped.
Okay. Can I throw in a question here, Pam? Because I have my own. I mean, I'm not an expert, so I have my own sort of myth about reverse mortgages. But I've always thought about it. I mean, I know that I don't know much about annuities either, but I've always thought that it was like an annuity. That you get this reverse mortgage, and then you get a payment every month for as long as you live, and it keeps on paying. Now, I know that's probably not accurate, but can you clarify if it is like an annuity? Is that a good comparison? Josh?
No.
Reverse. Okay, so that was wrong assumption. Okay.
That's very simple.
That's an annuity.
So first off, there are multiple different types of reverse mortgages. There's multiple different flavors.
Okay.
One flavor of reverse mortgage has some things in common with an annuity in that you're going to get paid a monthly income stream. But unlike an annuity, that income stream has an end. There is a contracted period at which point you're not going to be given any more money, and you're not going to be able to take out any more money from the bank. You have eaten up all the equity in your house. You're not going to get kicked out of your house until you die, but you have nothing left, and that income disappears.
Oh, yeah.
Which is probably going to make it difficult to stay in the house when you were living off of X number of dollars, and now you're living off of X minus Y number.
And that's why, Margaret, your question is like so critically important. Let's clear it up right now. It is not that panacea annuity, that's going to go on and on and on forever. Josh, one thing that I think no one ever talks about with this is, first of all, who offers these? It's not just insurance companies or financial institutions, but also, the government's involved and gotten involved in the past 10, 20 years because they've seen, how many private players have come into the market to offer reverse mortgages and how many people have gotten trapped and been hurt by it. So
I did not know that, by the way. That's interesting in itself, but go ahead, Josh.
So there are two types of reverse mortgages, broadly speaking. There is a HUD approved, a Department of Housing and Urban Development approved reverse mortgage, which is called a HECM, a home equity conversion mortgage. And then there are proprietary reverse mortgages. I would never advise anyone to go with a proprietary reverse mortgage. And it's not because the government is wonderful at regulating, although it is a lot better to have regulation than not with these things. And it's not even because there's no such thing as a good proprietary mortgage. It's because the HUD-approved mortgages follow very specific rules. And so as a result, you at least know a little bit of what you're getting. Whereas a proprietary mortgage it's the Wild West. And you might be getting this wonderful thing, and you might not. And my guess is you don't have the desire nor the legal background to go through the 90 pages of contract that's going to tell you whether or not one or the other. And so that's a big difference, this idea of the HUD approved versus the proprietary.
And the proprietary just means we're talking about, a bank,
themselves.
Institution. Yeah. It's advertising. A lot of those late night infomercials.
Yeah, the celebrities to make you want to buy.
Yeah, and the ads you see in AARP magazine or elsewhere, that kind of thing. Okay, I think that was an important note that we get across, because FHA, you want to make sure that you're looking at compliance with regulations, and it's better to just know that these mortgages have been assessed or offered through. So let's talk about some of the biggest risks and questions that have about the biggest risks. Okay, number one, I think a lot of people don't realize that there are limitations on the amount. This is a loan. It's not, let's call it what it is. It's not an annuity, it's a loan.
Yeah.
So what are the limitations as far as the amount that one can actually borrow from one's own equity?
Right, that's a good question.
So the amount that you can borrow is going to be somewhat of a complex formula, and I'm going to give you the elements of it. A lot of people say you can borrow up to half of your house, and while that is kind of true, the amount you can borrow is going to depend on the value of your house, but that's capped at $726,000.
That's what I was looking for.
Oh,
so
wow.
Let me pause right there, Margaret. So it's about 700,000. So if you were thinking that you need more than that, yeah, I know it's capped at that. So that means if you're looking at this and you're thinking that you're going to get let's say you have a big house and you're thinking you're going to get $2 million.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Okay, that's good. But I have a kind of related question. If you are agree in this reverse mortgage to get a certain amount paid back every month, so maybe $1,000, say, can you get more if you have an emergency? Like, that money's theirs, it's yours, but can you get more than you've agreed?
Possibly. So it's going to depend on the contract and the flavor of the reverse mortgage. If you have a reverse mortgage that's basically like a home equity line of credit, yes, you can take out more up to the maximum amount of the home equity.
Okay.
However, if the contract says you're going to get $1,000 a month for 15 years, that is what you are going to get.
That's a really good question.
And you can't go back and renegotiate. It's like, that's done.
You can renegotiate, but then you've got a whole new set of fees and a whole new set of qualifications, and it would be like refinancing a home, only you've eaten up a bunch of your equity, so you can be denied.
Yeah. This is a loan. It's not free. It costs a lot of money, which is another reason why it's better to kind of look at the government's options. Let's talk about, Josh, what non-recourse loan means, because a lot of people don't realize one of the benefits is that being a non-recourse loan simply means, you're not going to have to pay back that loan more than what the value of the home is at the time of the sale. Is that correct? Can you
So mortgage loans and reverse mortgages are a type of mortgage loans, and mortgage loans with regards to your home are non-recourse loans. So there are other mortgages on real estate that aren't, but for your personal home, it's a non-recourse loan. What this means is you can never be gone after for more than the value of your house. So if you have your house foreclosed, and a lot of people during 2008, they, their houses dropped in value, they couldn't afford it because they also lost their job. And as a result, they lost their house. But fortunately, because mortgage loans on primary residences are non-recourse loans, the most they could lose was their house. And that's the same thing with a reverse mortgage. And so it's don't get me wrong, it is terrible if you are in your 80s or 90s and you lose your house. So let's not downplay this idea that makes it wonderful, right? But at the same time, we know that your heirs are not going to owe more than your house. We know that if the worst case scenario is, yes, you have to move in with family, but you're not going to lose your 401k, you're not going to lose your car, you're not going to lose other assets because of the reverse mortgage, because the most they can take is the house. Non-recourse means that the bank does not have any recourse to do anything other than
beyond. Got it. Okay. But one thing that I worry about is, I know a lot of people on my show used to worry about this too, is, what if the sale of the house is not enough to cover the debt?
Well, the
For
good
the
news
loan.
is the only person who's left holding the bag at that point is the bank. Now, the reality is the government, the HUD approved loans, the government actually does come in and step in and make the bank partially whole, because you, as part of your fees that you pay, are going to pay mortgage insurance on it. And unlike a conventional mortgage where you can avoid the mortgage insurance, you cannot avoid the mortgage insurance on a reverse mortgage. There's always going to be some
Okay.
form of mortgage insurance on it.
Can we break down the fees a little
I
bit?
was just going to ask that. Can we break down fees? I'm really curious. No, that was a good question, Pam. I was thinking the same.
Yeah.
Joshua, we're just throwing them at you here. Oh, this is okay.
That's great. Yeah. So let's go. We're going to stick with the HUD because, again, proprietary, all off the table.
Okay.
As we go through this, these are the maximum caps that HUD places on it. So this means that there are reverse mortgage lenders that will charge less than these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to make sure that if you are in a position to get it, that you shop around, because this is not written in stone. This is what the cap is by the government. So we start off with origination fees. And that's going to be very similar to the origination fees when you do a conventional mortgage. On top of that, there's going to be a monthly servicing fee. And that servicing fee, depending on the criteria, is anywhere from $30 to $35 a month. And that's basically to pay for just the administrative stuff of doing the mortgage. On top of that, you're going to have your interest rate. And the interest rates on reverse mortgages are higher than the interest rates on conventional mortgages. And so just kind of expect that you're not going to get what you see out there with all of the conventional mortgages.
And let me just pause right there for a second and point out that that interest rate, you stop and think about it, that's counterintuitive. Remember, this is a loan.
Yep.
They're charging interest.
Every single year. Well, every single month. So, and then on top of all of that, you've got the insurance. And as we look at the mortgage insurance premiums on reverse mortgages, there are two separate mortgage insurance premiums. The first one is 1/2 of 1% on the balance of the loan every single year. The second mortgage premium is a 2% mortgage premium, not on the amount of money you take out. That is assessed on the assessed value of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a $500,000 house and you take out $100,000 in a reverse mortgage, the upfront reverse mortgage premium that gets paid to HUD is a 10% premium of the $100,000 you put out, because it is 2% of the assessed value of the house, not of the loan that you take out. And so this is something that can surprise people because, oh, it's 2%. Okay, I'm only going to take out $100,000. That's a couple $1,000s. And that's not what it actually calculates out.
It's 10%. You know, can I ask a question about
the example I gave, it was 10%.
Yeah, can I ask a question about these reverse mortgages? Because I mean, this shows I obviously don't have a house to sell, and there's not questions for me. But now, when the government sells you a reverse mortgage, who gets the money? I mean, is there like a person gets a commission, like a seller who works for the government, or is there like a seller who sells the HUD reverse mortgage as one of his many options and offers for you?
So it's not the government that's going to give you the reverse mortgage. It's similar to how the FHA does lending with first-time homebuyers. So you go to Bank of America or Wells Fargo, hopefully not Wells Fargo for obvious reasons recently, but you go to a bank and you are going, or your credit union, and you are going to get a mortgage. And if it qualifies as a HUD-approved reverse mortgage or a FHA-approved first-time homebuyer's mortgage, then the government's going to provide some backup to the loan in order to make the lender whole if anything goes wrong.
Okay.
Really,
The lender's selling you the product. It's just that they're following some guidelines.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's where the
protection,
government. And Josh, what happens? Could I add can people add their spouse?
Yeah, in fact, oftentimes it's advisable for a person to add their spouse as a co-borrower because the protections in the regulations are tied to the borrower. And if a spouse is not a borrower on the reverse mortgage, then they have much fewer protections. It's not to say they have no protections, but they do have fewer protections than if they were a co-borrower. So generally, if you're going to get a reverse mortgage, Having a spouse on it would be a good idea. There would be circumstances where you wouldn't, but those would be extremely rare.
Okay. So I want to just kind of go back to the beginning, my very first question about, who is and who isn't ideal. Because we've talked about the fees, we've talked about all the things, the complexities and the guidelines. I think now we know, Margaret, there's a lot to know.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not simple. This is, but it can be streamlined. And I think that if you were to just give me a quick profile of someone who it really does work well for. Give me a scenario, real world.
So I'm going to give two answers to that. And then the first answer is it's someone who is relatively financially stable. It's someone where they are not needing this for long-term living and lifestyle expenses. Okay, it might be short-term living and lifestyle expenses, but not, we've got a 30-year retirement still ahead of us and we want to use a reverse mortgage for this. As you said earlier, wealthier people would obviously be a good choice. But the answer that I'm going to give as the ultimate answer, and as the answer that might seem self-serving, but it is truly the right answer, which is the person it's right for is a person who sat down with a fiduciary financial advisor who doesn't have a dog in the game, who's not going to earn a dime off of whether or not you get this reverse mortgage, and to find out from that person whether or not you personally qualify. Because it's impossible to go through all the possible scenarios in a video, and you have to be very careful about trusting the quote-unquote advisor who's selling you the reverse mortgage about how great of a...
Because you want an advisor who's actually not selling you a reverse mortgage.
Yeah, who's paid to be on your side.
Who's an advocate for you.
Yeah.
But okay, so I think I'm getting the picture. A picture is emerging of a person who can use this financial arrangement to supplement and to help them through a period of time. Do you have an example of somebody who you've seen where it really worked brilliantly, and how and why?
So I'll give you a couple of different examples. And the first one is the one that I like to use the most. And we talked about it in the other one, which is a person who is going through long-term care need or a terminal illness. Mm-hmm. And the reason why that one makes so much sense is because we have a pretty definitive end date on this. Mm-hmm. We know that if you're diagnosed with a particular type of cancer, your doctor is going to give you a range of periods of time that you are going to likely live, right? Hopefully you beat it, but your doctor will tell you whether or not this is highly likely that you're going to beat it and you've got another 30 years, or this type of cancer at the stage that you're at, you're going to have X, Y number of years. Right. Same thing with long-term care. Generally, depending on the reason why you need long-term care, you're going to have a good understanding of, is this a type of long-term care illness that could drag on for a decade or more, or is this a type of one that generally ends within 2, 3, 4 years? Right. I know this is a very maudlin conversation, but this
but we have to talk about it.
Yeah, it's reality.
And when we know this kind of definitive end, then we can figure out, okay, not only does a reverse mortgage make sense in the plan, but which type of reverse mortgage makes sense and what would the structure of it be to fit within this period of time that we're looking at, and to know what types of potential risks and potential other things might come up in the future that we can manage and deal with.
And again, the reason that it works best in those scenarios where you do have sort of an idea of how long is why?
Because you know when the end date is, and you don't have a situation where you are going to outlive the value of your house, the equity in your house, and where you have this stream of income shutting off, or this money that you were counting on shutting off, and now even if you sold your house, you're not going to get any money.
Right. So now really, when you think about it, we've really narrowed down the audience for those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to stop here take a breather, because I think we've covered so much here in this conversation. And I really do want to just take a second to look at the audience and say, please leave us your questions. I mean, this is an ongoing conversation that we're having here at Retire Different. Pam is here with us regularly, and we will bring on guests like Joshua to talk about these topics. I mean, I feel honestly like I'm sitting in your office with you, Joshua, and this is how it should be. This is how the conversation should be with the client. All those questions that Pam has outlined. But I didn't mean to interrupt, but Pam, are there any others? But I just wanted to stop for a second and say, this is real. This is the real way that the conversation should be going. And you should
and also, you know, I'm a big proponent of it's not fun. It is awkward as heck to sit down with your adult children and open up this dialogue. They're going to be emotional, you know, etc. But if you can have this kind of conversation with your family while things are boring and there's nothing going on, and
trauma,
no emotion, can I just say that every opportunity you have that you're together with your family, you can bring it up. You're wide awake. You're not tired. You're not drinking. You know, this is a topic that you're going to feel so much better after you discuss the pros and the cons and how it works, because it impacts them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely,
that's what this is all about.
Absolutely. Well, look, we've got resources here in abundance. Pam's website is wealthramp.com, and Joshua's is purposefulsp.com.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. But thank you both for this incredible conversation. I hope that you found it useful, everyone. And please leave your comments below. If we've missed some questions that were important to you, please let us know. And thanks, Pam and Joshua. It's great to have you here. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our Retire Different YouTube channel and check out our website at retiredifferent.com. We are a community of people who are asking questions and trying to make good financial decisions so that we can have an amazing retirement. We'll be looking at our relationship to money and also places that we can go for support, advice, and inspiration.